So, we had this kid over there. I don't want to go and say his name.
Yeah, I was going to say, don't say his name. We'll just say he's a 17.
I don't even know what his name is, so,
We're not going to make him a celebrity. We don't do that in real news.
He goes over there and he goes and shoots up the school with a shotgun and a revolver, both of which, they want to go and say, oh, the AR-15, that's a weapon of war. You can buy revolvers in Canada. You can buy shotguns in Canada.
Yep.
These aren't even like super restricted. Like, maybe it had to be a larger revolver, but it doesn't take much to go and cut down a revolver. But even then, like a revolver is a 38 revolver. That's a tiny round. I got one of those. It's not like this really shows that it's not the gun, it's the person who causes the issues. And I think this kind of destroys a leftist narrative that's like, it's all the assault rifles, we need to ban these. Because now you're going to start seeing the left start to go into, so we need to go and ban all guns. Because obviously it's not assault weapons.
Yep.
These weren't assault weapons that were used. So like it was a pump action shotgun. Like, dude, like even Joe Biden has like a shotgun.
Oh yeah, and he made that. Remember that video where he says, when somebody's coming to his house, he's like, "I'll take that shotgun and fire it twice in the air and fire 2 warning shots." Joe, the gun's empty.
Yeah, and that would end up getting you arrested, which actually ended up getting the black
it's very illegal.
I saw a story about that because she fired a warning shot.
Yep.
You're not allowed to go and do that. It's reckless endangerment.
Yep.
But this over here, and here's the really weird thing with this. We're going to deep dive, bring this into the Foundry, go and forge this a little bit.
The Foundry, yes.
We're going to discuss this.
I can hear some bottle caps getting flung off and hitting the floor.
Yeah,
that's when you know we're in the Foundry.
Smell those over here.
Yeah.
But here's the issue over with this. So our school system in America, we have a terrible school system. Like, well, the first thing is, I feel like this kid, I remember seeing that, like, even the teachers were bullying him. I saw, like, someone reported that.
Really?
The teacher was bullying, yeah. He was, like, making fun for smelling bad. Stuff like that. And this guy was on the football team.
Really?
And then he goes to the school. Yeah, and he goes into school with, like, these edgy, like, trench coat. He had, like, apparently, like,
boots, black boots.
Signs and, like, Iron Cross on there, trying to be some, like, edgelord. Like some Nazball mass shooter or something like that. Like the memes became alive with this. I mean, like this guy's just going in there being all edgy, and then goes, he's on a football team. But the thing is, maybe there was some hazing going on. Obviously there must have been something else going on. His dad said that he's been bullied.
Penn State would know a thing or two about that.
Yeah. Like, here's the issue with this. Like, what are we gonna? There's ways. I think there's a lot of ways we can prevent these things. Like, number one, of course, would be to limit the amount of areas that students can enter and exit the school.
Yes, definitely, especially with these high schools and middle schools.
Oh yeah, like mine, we actually had a pretty good job with that. Like during the mornings, there'd be police over there, and there was like maybe 1 or 2 ways. There's like 1 or 2 you could enter or leave, and there was police over there, and they were driving around. And this is a good, cost-effective way to go and do it. Because and then after, here's the thing too, after like maybe from 7 to 7:45 or whatever it was, they lock it. And then if you want to go into school, you can only go in through the main office. And then to go in, you have to go and ring the bell.
Yep.
And then they let you in through this one set of doors, and through, they would think it was one door and then another door, and then you got in the office, then you go and sign in, then you go and exit through another door. And that way, if I was in charge of the school, you come in late, they go and take you in, and if anything, you sign in, you come in, and I guess they could bring a metal detector up to your backpack if they wanted to. They wouldn't even necessarily need it. They could just look at it or something, or if you're just a suspicious person, because most of these people, all these people, they look pretty suspicious. Like you see this guy.
Yeah, walking around a trench coat in a hot summer day, it's kind of suspicious.
Yeah, if he's doing that, then I'd go and examine stuff. If you're in a trench coat, in most schools, why are you wearing a trench coat and you have not any of this edgy stuff on there, that should raise alarm bells.
nobody wears a trench coat to school. Like, I've never seen that unless it's some
My
like
school,
edgelord like this is about to like do some
school
crazy
band
crap.
my school banned those. You're not allowed to go and wear them. I don't think you really should have a trench coat at school.
Yeah.
It's not good for wearing at school. Don't wear that stuff, And if you want to go, and if like, let's say you have a phys ed class, they need to go and run the track or something. Then you go and press some buttons, and they let you out.
Mm-hmm.
The teacher has the code, and it'll go and record what teacher did it, and it would automatically close. Like, it would automatically lock after you close the door. I mean, this can all be done for less than this is a very cheap solution, and it would be good. So not only does it prevent like school shooters from coming in, especially ones who don't belong to the school district, but it also prevents like pedophiles from coming into the school, prevents students from leaving the school illegally.
Yeah.
And then like getting into trouble. So this is very basic, probably maybe $1,000, maybe less. Like depending on how much you really want to get into it. It's like locking doors. Like if you have like a bunch of doors, you just have like a set to like an automatic lock. Boom. And they shouldn't be able to be like forced open very easily. And then the windows in the classroom, they should have like a dividers or something in there so that it would be hard for actually, I don't even think you really need anything for those. Those should be fine. Because I've never heard of a school shooter like breaking in through a window.
Yeah.
Like I've never heard of that. You should have like maybe, probably like one resource officer patrolling or like a police officer patrolling the outskirts of the school, be around outside, and there'd be at least one inside the school.
Mm-hmm.
Probably outside. Then you could have professors. If professors could be armed themselves, I think that'd be an easy thing to do if they're pass a test. They go and take a class, they pass it, and they're allowed to go and bring their own weapon to school. And that would be an easy solution. If none of the teachers have had any experience, which you'll usually find at least one teacher who would be willing to do that. Like my school had a couple, I had a couple professors with or teachers with AR-15s at home, and one's a shotgun instructor.
Wow,
but
everybody at my school would be afraid to touch one of those. All my teachers, they were so liberal.
Well, you could go. Well, then hire more conservative teachers.
I'd love that.
They should go and hire ones who have at least one. I think you should be able to have. There should be a teacher. School shootings are done within 3 minutes. There should be at least one teacher within 1 minute of walking distance of each part of the school who's armed. So, if you have a big school, you might need maybe 3 or 4 teachers. You could always have more, who are within an area and they would be armed. And now, if you want to get a little bit more expensive, I think, you could have a teacher armed with certain teachers. They'd be like a special locker. It would be secure within the classroom. They'd have to go and use their hand. It would be like biometric scan to unlock, and this would be like a bonus. And then they'd go and use a biometric scan to go and unlock the locker within the classroom. And there would be a rifle in there, and this would be tricky, the rifle, because here's the thing. I think what would be useful would be something like a P90, but maybe with a 3-round burst in there. But the problem with that, if you could go and coordinate with the police to go and deputize a couple of the teachers for this, and this would be more into the realm of fantastical scenarios, but it wouldn't be that hard depending on your state to go and deputize them to use these weapons and be trained in them.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
And you would only maybe need 1 or 2 of those, and you would have one of them within the office. There'd be someone within the office who's been trained to go and use it. And I say 90 because that shoots they'd get the armor piercing ones, the actual a 5.7. That's armor piercings. They have the civilian ones, and they kind of suck because they don't pierce armor. But this is a low caliber rifle. It's very fast, like a personal defense weapon, something like that. And it will not over penetrate because the way the 5.7 is designed, but it will still penetrate the armor. It's It's a wonderful cartridge out there, and that's why you see a lot of like Secret Service and people like that. Very low recoil round, very low recoil, very fast fire rate. It would be useful, like, and that'd be easier to go and train someone with, I'd imagine. Because the only thing would be like loading that'd take a little bit, because you have to like load from the top, and like they have that's where the magazine is. But you can get that with like a red dot sight, and if it's in a 3-round burst, you just click it a couple times, and it stays on target pretty easily, and that would
stay on target. Quote.
And even if someone would be going into the school with a like an armored vest, they would be it'd be very likely that this would penetrate the armored vest, and it's not. It would be a preferable. It'd be a preferable solution. Now, if you cannot afford to get someone, to go and talk to the police and negotiate that, I think something like I think just like a regular, like if you want to go and deal with armor piercing, you could use an AR-15 that will penetrate, most armors generally. And if you have someone, because it'd be pretty difficult. You probably would have to go and like take this out of your car to go and get an AR-15. Like, you're not going to be concealing it in the school. And like, at least with the armor, you're probably going to, that's going to be difficult because that's heavy as crap.
Yep.
And, especially if you have it everywhere, so unless it's like maybe the winter, that would be more difficult to go and find those. But even then, people would notice unless he goes like straight to the bathroom. But that would be one solution for that. Like just have them have a team at least, and then you could give other professors like shotgun. Other teachers. Maybe you'd have. I don't know how many would you really need. Maybe like a few of those. Definitely, the office needs to go and have one of those. Or they need to have like some sort of bodyguard trained person. But I think in terms of budget, you could have some in the office, at least one. They'll be like within at any be like there'd be the office, but there'd be like the reception lobby. Then there'd be like a closed office that you wouldn't be able to go and see from the reception lobby, and that office would have bulletproof glass on there, be protected, and there'll be at least one person in that room who's qualified to use a rifle or something at any given time, so that if someone does try to go and come in through the office, that person comes out and you can go, and even if he like shoots up the office, they'd be able to go and stop him. And there will be an emergency button within the office that you click, and all the doors in the school will become locked when you click that button, the panic button. And an alarm will sound within the school. Police department will be notified. And, if they're like, and they can't undo it unless you put in a special code, which only a police officer knows.
Mm-hmm.
So that way, that it'd be pretty difficult for them to break into the school. I think that's a good solution for most of those issues, and most of these won't be too expensive. Like a panic button, that should obviously be in there. That shouldn't be probably more than like $100. Like, it might be a little bit difficult installing it, but it's basically like a life alert.
Yeah.
But you go talk to your local police department about that. And the doors, not too expensive. Like having teachers who are armed, that could be. The only thing would be classes, but you might have professors or teachers who already have those classes, or who would be willing to go and take them on their own dime, and that would be a cheap solution. And I think. Oh.
No, you keep going. I'll get my ideas once you're done.
I don't think that'd be too expensive. Like a P90, if you can work out with the police, you could probably a couple $1,000s. You'd only need maybe one for every floor. So if you have like a three-floor school, that'd be like $9,000. But when you go and look at it, that's it's not all that much money. But then the locker for that would probably be a little more expensive. But I think having a teacher with concealed carry, that'd probably be a better solution for most people. And plus, that would also stop people from bringing like knives into the classroom. And, maybe it would stop students from like beating the crap out of their teachers, because I've seen videos of that before.
Yeah, that's true.
And I think that would definitely be a major part in this. What are your thoughts?
Well, I agree with a lot of what you said. Basically, the ideas I think we can implement, because this is a big problem. We both acknowledge this is a problem that we think we can solve. And the best ways I've seen is you need to change the schools and you need to change American culture. Those are two very big things, so I'm going to have to unpack them each.
Well, for this one, I was thinking like immediately not involving policy. That would be, we could do another one of those another time for like the policy sort of things. But this would be, what can a school do right now?
Yeah. School right now, basically, I think what they can do is first, they did this at my high school to some extent, which is like you were saying, lock the door so nobody can get in from the outside. Now, what my school did is we had like high school is they had all the teachers had swipe cards, so they'd swipe in and get out. Kind of like at Penn State, you do that for the dorms, and that works. But the problem is when you go to the front of the school, to hit the ringer to get buzzed in, they let you in as long as you're a kid and you don't look like a pedophile. That's a problem that needs to change. You need to have extreme vetting where you show like an ID or something that will, that they can swipe into a system. You're still outside the building when you give it to the security guard or whoever's there so that they know who you are. And then once you go through the first door, metal detectors. Have a gun or something, it goes off. And then you're locked in because there will be another set of doors to go into the actual school, and you're locked in like this bulletproof glass sort of maybe area, and that would solve a lot of problems right there.
Well, see, here we go too with the metal detectors. Yeah, I think if we did, well, they would have the wands, I think. So you come in, and then there'll be, and this is the hardest part, getting people to actually listen to procedure. That's traditionally people always like ignore that. But yeah, student comes in, they go and they're gonna have a metal detector go through like a little wand because there's more accurate.
Yeah, sure.
They go and wave it through your backpack, and this would only be done for people who come in not through the regular entrance. And so this would be the case for anyone who comes in after school, and if you're identified as a potential risk.
Yeah.
Which that'd be like the Parkland shooter. He couldn't wear a backpack. You'd have those sorts of people would have to go in through the front door at, they won't be allowed to go in through the main entrance.
Well, I think you'd have to do it to everyone because you don't know who's going to be the shooter. I mean, some of these cases, but sometimes you don't.
Well, you can generally tell with those. You can generally tell with them.
But nobody's willing to speak up and say. And then when they do, the FBI comes to the kid's house 29 times and nothing happens.
Oh yeah, that's more policy based, and that'll have to be that's gonna have to be dealt with another time. I go off on the whole policies that need to be changed, but I think for this, if you're because they generally identify if you're like some edgelord, you will have to go through there, and I think that's an appropriate way to go and do it. If the kids, you go through the edgelord entry.
Yes.
Go through the main office. I don't think you need a metal detector for everyone because that's going to go and cause major problems for people like in the band, people who are in sports. That's going to cause major traffic issues, and that's going to be money for a problem which statistically is very unlikely to happen.
That's true. That's very true.
Unless these issues is with people bringing in rifles, and you can generally tell. And you could go and have limits on the size of backpacks, I suppose.
That's a good idea.
Like you couldn't have anything too big, but you can go and smuggle things in backpacks. But I mean, I don't think that's as big of a deal.
But these are like big shotguns and AR-15s.
Entry control is pretty easy to deal with, and that deals with a lot of them. Like Adam Lanza, when he went and shot up the one school.
Yeah.
He went to his car. And he came in during after hours. He wasn't supposed to be there. A lot of these people, they come in afterwards to go and get their weapons because they have to, they bring their weapons, they bring their ammo, and that's one way to go and do it. I think for some schools, if you're in a particularly crime-riddled area, there'd be a one metal detector, and those ones can do it. But I think generally, budget-wise, I don't think metal detectors are that necessary. I think because usually you'd have a metal detector if you're inner city with a lot of gang violence.
Yeah, and they have those in like Philadelphia schools.
Yeah, that would make sense. But if you're in like the countryside, I don't think that's necessary, except for possibly for the like office. That would be where you'd only really have one. That'd only be for special cases, but not for the average students, because that's going to cause major issues with getting people in and out of school.
Well, and then what I'll add on to that is part 2, which is, let's say they get past that, or those aren't in place. You have teachers with concealed carry permits allowed to conceal carry in school. Now, before anybody jumps on me, yes, of course you'd have them take tests, and they'd be extremely vetted and all that jazz. But that would be the cheapest, easiest way to get, another form of protection inside the school that shoots back. Because these guys always go to places like schools because they know nobody's going to shoot back. And if you implement that, it's a very quick, easy way to do it. I'm fully for it. And concealed carry permit holders are some of the safest people in the world.
Well, here's another thing, too. What if they open carried?
Yes.
Well, here's the thing.
It could be a bad idea.
Well, why would that be? Like, if they have a retention holster on there and they're specifically trained on how to deal with that.
Well, what do you mean? When you mean open carry, do you mean just for pistols?
Yeah, they won't be open carrying rifles.
Okay, good.
It'd be like a police officer, basically, like with a pistol on.
I wouldn't mind that so much, but I think it could create a problem because the kids in schools might get distracted by that. So maybe they have to keep it in their desk or something,
Well, no, I wouldn't trust that. I think it needs to be on there. Like, unless it's within a special locker that is biometric. Because I know how out of hand, like, let's say there's a substitute teacher who comes in. They're usually not as... They probably won't be trained in that. They're usually,
no. I'm saying only when the teacher's there. He would, like, let's say teacher A comes in, with his concealed carry gun. He keeps it in his desk, locked up in a certain safe. But, when a sub's there, he's not there, and so his gun isn't there.
But you know how people generally are, though.
Stupid.
And they're going to forget about it. And then, like, the kids are going to be like, ooh! Unless it's, like, locked in there. But then if it's locked, you have to be within quick act. Like, that's why I'm saying biometric, because you can go and do that. It'll scan your finger, like, pretty fast.
Well, yeah, that's a small detail. My point is that it's locked away. That's the
idea.
I
think... if it's concealed on their person or locked away where kids cannot access it, that's fine.
Yeah.
But, I'd think preferably on their person, because if there's a shooter, they'll be able to go and
quickly use it.
And if it's open carry, that has a secondary effect of, psychologically. Yeah, like, people will be less likely to go and punch the teacher in the face if they see him with a gun.
Yeah. That's something I think that should be tested out. Test it in classrooms where it's concealed and you can't see it on their body, and in cases where you can clearly see it open carry. That'd be an interesting thing to study. Very interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think another option too would be like maybe an app on the phone that if all the teachers are on their computer, like a program, and then. If there's an issue, like preferably on their phone, but some teachers don't have phones or they don't want to use it.
Yeah.
But let's say it's on the phone, you go and turn on the phone, and this would be a general school app. There'd be other things you can do. Like, you could theoretically take attendance with it or whatnot. But one of the options would be to go and, you click a button and it causes the alarm system to go off.
Yes.
Like for a school shooter. And they'll go and record the location so that,
everybody knows where it started.
Yeah, so they can go and look for the person over there, and then once this alarm's on, all the school doors become locked.
Yeah.
The classroom doors, they get locked. The teacher can go and open those to go and let students in, but you can't open it from the outside.
Yeah, and I think also you could do it like banks do it, where it's where you press the button and it immediately calls the cops too.
Yeah, it'd be hooked up to the same one that's in the office that has that sort of line.
Yeah, it immediately calls the cops and immediately locks all doors so nobody can get in from the outside. Could that be a problem though? I don't think about it.
No, I don't think that'd be a problem.
Yeah.
Well, that could go on to the second part, all the doors,
mm-hmm.
and then like the teachers could go and open it to the outside. Because here's the thing, like this will have to be dealt with another way of how to procedurally deal with this issue, because that's a whole other thing unto itself. Maybe next week or whenever we get around to it. But another thing too, technology wise, would be interesting. Like, when the school like active shooter threat is engaged, like if you have a lot of money in your when you value stuff like this, there's a couple like little bonus things you could have, which would be expensive, but I think it might help.
Mm-hmm.
Have like a smoke screen or something, or like tear gas or something pop up in the hallway.
You'd have to have those everywhere, though.
Yeah, this is the bonus.
The high-tech school.
High-tech. You'd have like you're gonna start spraying stuff, so the school shooter would be less likely to go and target people. And then there would also be cameras around the school, or microphones at least. Like, not at least, but like if you want to go and be smart, they'd have microphones, and they'd be set up to a network. And so if there's a shot that goes out, they'll be placed every so often. It could go into, you would be able to go and determine where that shot came from.
Mm.
And then that would go in, like every time another shot would go, and there'd be like a little map somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
It would display like a approximate location of where this person is, so you could get a better idea, and then you go and like let people get out of a particular area. And then if you really have a lot of like, and then you have that sprinkler like system over there, and then there'd be another system in place if you had a real like load of money. You just like the super rich school, where you would go and have like a gate that comes out, and it would divide certain parts of the school.
He will not divide us. He will not divide us.
The gate would start. It would automatically start opening as soon as the alarm gets pressed.
Uh-huh.
It would section the school off, so that way students within the safe areas could go and get out without having to worry about the shooter getting out. The shooter's basically, he starts getting locked into the safe area. He's stuck within the hallway, and there's no way out.
Yeah.
So then they're kind of stuck. Like even the bathroom doors will lock. So he's basically a fish in a barrel at that point.
A fish in the toilet. Yeah, so that's a very, of course, high tech, utopian, super wealthy school vision. Because you could obviously do a lot. Like you could have freaking turrets and stuff that like.
I don't think that turrets. That would be a liability problem.
No. They're like, think of it as they're like artificially intelligent, turrets that like can detect them and like track them, and they like have bullets that curve around hallways and take them.
No. Oh, well, actually, no, I wouldn't do that, because if you have a hacker.
Yeah, I know. It'd be the craziest thing in the world.
That becomes an issue. Like with the segmenting and the gas, you wouldn't necessarily even need to go and use tear gas. You could use just like a regular smoke screen.
Yeah. Something
like that. Like even like just flour or something to go and distort the vision so they can't see anything.
Yeah. There's a lot really you could play with. Like, because I know there are some schools that are like high tech like this, and it's like nuts. And I don't know where they're getting their money. Probably a private school, but. I think
private schools, you generally don't see them getting shot up, and that's a policy issue, and that's the same thing with charter school.
Yeah,
and that's a policy issue, but we can talk about that more another time. But basically, the reason why is you really can't kick people out of the public school.
True.
That's a problem. Private schools, charter schools, absolutely you can kick them out.
Yeah.
The Parkland shooter kept getting kicked out of schools. But you really can't do that in a public school. Which,
you can kick him out. It's just it's really rare when that happens. And I think he was kicked out of his public schools.
But then he got back in there somehow.
Yeah, exactly.
So, because he couldn't go anywhere else, he's kicked out of all the other schools, so it's like a circus. Just like kicked out of one, go to another, kick out of one, go to another. And then, in a really idealistic world, what you would do is you find these students who are bad students, and you just send them to a high security school that deals with bad students.
Yes, yeah.
They'd have metal detectors everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
So you go to go and shoot up the school.
Yeah, and you need to also in the schools, I know this is kind of a tangent, but you gotta stop this culture of bullying to the point that it makes these kids go nuts like this, because apparently this kid was getting bullied in the recent Santa Fe shooting. And, I've always joked that, bullying's, it's good for you, like it builds you up, it builds your confidence, but when you do that to the wrong person, it comes back to bite you, or in this case, shoot you. So there's also needs to be a school culture change.
Well, they say all the time, "Oh, we're bullies." I don't really know how you can do that. And we've had bullying for years, but
Yeah.
school shootings then start becoming into the vogue for at least until now. I used to be able to have people bring guns into schools and they'd be fine. But I don't know, maybe I was starting to think about this. Maybe the internet has something to do with it, because
maybe
you might not associate with people, but then after school, you come home and then they're on the internet, and then they keep calling you names, and they'll find nudes of you, because you shouldn't be as a kid you shouldn't be sending nudes at all, but people do it, and then you have all these other options that they have nowadays that they didn't have back then. And I think they're doing it too harshly now in some states, where cyberbullying's a huge offense, which I don't think you should do that, but I also don't think I think that's a lot to do with it.
It just needs to be discouraged, and it's hard to do that because, when you set rules and when people tell you not to do something, there's always that Streisand effect to do the opposite of what they tell you not to do. It's it's really tricky. It's just, and like you said, there always has been bullying, there always will be, but there's so many other things, of course, we could do, but, you gotta see the signs as to when guys with trench coats are getting bullied and think, gee, this could be a bad, mix here, something could happen.
Well, I think maybe they would need a anonymous way for
anonymous tip service, yeah.
But my problem
That'd get trolled, and people
would go and be like, "Oh, well, this guy's got to shoot up a school," but he's not.
Yeah, exactly.
So but at least for the teachers, for them to report that, 'cause I don't think usually teachers you'd think they wouldn't be in on the drama, but the last shooting shows that even the teachers can bully. But I don't know how much the teachers actually bullying.
Yeah, and that's very rare. That never happened at my schools, and I bet that doesn't happen at many other schools.
I mean, we'd have teachers joke with some kids, but we never.
Yeah.
But I don't know if the teacher was actually bullying.
Yeah, we really don't know the full context of it.
And that's one of those things where you probably will never know the true story.
Yeah.
It would be very difficult to go and figure that out. Now, I do think that another issue too, which you'd start seeing more nowadays, is parents. They aren't dealing with their children very well after school. Back in the day, if you did if you got suspended or kicked out, or you got in trouble in school, your parents would go and discipline you. Mm-hmm. Nowadays, they're like, "Oh, well, school already punished you, so I'm not going to punish you more." That's the most stupid thing.
Yeah, parents aren't doing their job anymore of parenting, because
the teachers aren't allowed to go and do their job. They can't go and discipline you like your parents should. The one way you can prevent this would be, you're not going to like what I'm going to suggest, but, at least for public schools, have them be boarding schools.
Ugh.
Because hear me out. At boarding school, you won't have to go and worry about them bringing guns. How they going to do that? They're going to be in the boarding school.
That's true, but that has a lot of other problems.
You can go and ensure that all the students have basic environment, at least for homework. They're basically, since they're all not going to be at home, they'll all have the same home environment in that regard.
Yeah. There is some advantages, but to me the disadvantages outweigh it. But that's another debate. But it's an interesting thought. I'll give you that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, because you don't see this. And then, you always have the option of, cyber school. But I don't think that's going to be mainstream for another
10 years.
Probably 10 years.
Yeah, that's how I'm feeling.
And then what they're going to end up doing is, having a high-security school with very few teachers in there and just people to make sure you're not kicking each other's butts.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what's going to end up becoming. It's just going to be, a place to go. It's not going to be, a traditional school in any ways.
How do you get rid of school shootings? You get rid of schools.
Public schools.
Yeah.
I mean, I looked it up. The only times I've ever seen anything about charter school shootings was like people, like gang members outside the charter schools shot at the charter schools, like that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fascinating. That only happens in public schools. Like, that's one of those things like I didn't quite realize until you brought it up. I was like, yeah, it's pretty true.
Look it up. Look it up. Like,
yeah, listeners, look it up.
There's like I think one or two, but they weren't from students of the school. It was like some guy in a truck came and shot at the, like they were not in the school.
Yeah.
And that's because they can choose who goes in. So I saw, they're like, oh, why is it that there's more died in the schools than died in the military this year? I was like, well, let's go take a look at this. There's 1.7 million people in America's military. We're not in any war right now. And of those people, only the best and the brightest, if you have, there's a lot of ways that you can get kicked out of the military. They won't accept you if you have a lot of these conditions in the military.
Yeah, yeah.
Like the schools, they have to let, everyone in the public schools, even if you have major mental issues.
Yeah, and I understand why that is. Because,
you have to do something with them.
Yeah, you got to do something with them, and the best way to ensure a better society is that everyone's educated, but at the same time you got to make sure that people that need help in terms of mental problems are getting help.
Well, I don't think they should be going to a regular public school. I think they should have special schools. And like my grandmother, she was like a short bus assistant for years.
Oh God.
And like she would even say that they shouldn't be going to school. Yeah. And then they'll do it because of budgetary reasons. So the school has to go and pay them to go to if they're in the school district, the school's responsible for them, even if they're mentally handicapped.
Yep.
The school district pays to send them to a special school. And that's why you see students go to regular school districts. And that needs to change. Maybe for those people, maybe they would do better. And the people with certain behavioral problems, certain mental issues, disorders, maybe they'd do better in school.
The only problem that creates is that now all these screwed up people are around screwed up people all the time. They're not around normal people. And they don't know how to interact normally or be with normal people because they're not with normal people. That's one big downside to that.
Well, I guess you'd have to triage that.
Triage?
Yeah, that's what they did in the military. You'd have people who are they're going to wait on them. Someone's injured, he can be saved, but it's important that they do it now so they get him first. And there's someone who's been he got his head chopped off and can't really do anything with that. So they kind of they give him some morphine.
Mm-hmm.
But basically triage, you'd have the head case, they would go into a boarding school. You have the people who can still become genuine members of society. You can have them go to regular school until they become a significant problem. And then you can send them to a specialized school district. And then regular people just go to regular school. That's how you triage it.
It could kind of work, maybe. I don't know.
Well, if you have someone who is completely, they're never going to be able to work a job other than a pusher. Why would you even want to send them to public school? Because they'll get bullied there.
Yeah. Yeah, it'd be just worse for them than anything.
I mean, and it's going to be hard on the teachers because, if they get into a fight and the parents are not going to want to have to deal with that. And it's just better off to go and send them to a special school district. And especially if they're violent, they need to go into a place away from their parents who enabled this violence. They need to go into a dorm school, an overnight full-time school, especially and too, if you have really poor parents who can't really afford to feed you at home, that if you have a dorm or not dorm, a boarding school, I think that'd be beneficial for poor parents.
Yes, we're helping poor people too.
It's the Milton Hershey School, they do that.
Yeah, that's a good example.
It's one of the that's where a lot. My friend was threatened to go there once by his parents.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean his parents were they're pretty poor, so it's probably true. But he never went there. He's a smart kid.
Yeah, good. Wow, that was a lot of great ideas I think we've come up with. Do you have anything else? Final thoughts to add?
No, I think that's pretty good.
Tune in next week, guys. We'll see you later.